Does Monty Williams want to get fired? And this is just it's funny to me that we actually are talking about this because I have seen it's been floating around social media for a while now, and I never like to say someone is pulling a George Costanza where they're actively trying to get fired from their job. I mean, I guess if you're a basketball coach and you do get fired and all the money's guaranteed, it's honestly not a bad gig. I mean, it kind of seems like I'm really surprised someone hasn't tried to pull one over on an NBA team. Like, "Hey, I'm just gonna work my way up through the ranks, become an NBA head coach, collect all this money, and then just bottom out, and just live the rest of my life." I don't know. Maybe there's like a movie in there or something. But anyways, it does sound crazy saying it out loud, but the way this guy coaches without making adjustments on offense and defense, the way he experiments with lineups and rotations every game just screams, "I don't want to be here." And even in the offseason, when the Detroit Pistons signed him, I don't remember Monty Williams really giving in interviews or being rumored to any other team. It just seems like, I don't know, he pulled the wool over everybody's eyes and Tom Gores fell for it. That's just what it seems like. So against Indiana, we saw him go with 11 players in the first 13 minutes. And earlier that day, he said he wanted to go with 9-ish players per game, and I don't know, maybe he meant still playing James Wiseman because he's the only player on the roster that looked like, okay, he's half a player. But, why not come out and say, "Look, we got a lot of new faces. I wanna see what I got and see what combinations put us in the best place to win." Why not just come out and just be truthful with the fans, with the media, and all of that? I don't understand why continue to say one thing and then do the opposite. I do not understand this from Monty Williams. And again, this just all screams, I don't want to be here. Please fire me. And I did get this question asked to me, and I want to pull it up real quick. This came from a subscriber of the podcast, and I apologize that it's taken me so long to get to these questions, but I'm gonna read the name out here real quick. Let me just pull it up. So it comes from user WL5KE4CK3V. He says, in your opinion, how bad will things have to get before Tommy G decides to fire Monty? I mean, I think a 28 game losing streak was as bad as it's going to get. I don't know, but my this is what I think happens. Pistons get a few more wins. They look good heading into the offseason, if you can even say that after this year. And I think he comes back for another season. And the only way he gets that Tom Gores fires him early and cuts his losses is if they go on another bad losing streak next season. I think we're gonna see two long losing streaks from Monty before he gets fired from the Detroit Pistons, because I don't believe he's going to be here. I think all 6 years. I think that's what his contract's for. 6 years, 83 million, something absurd. I don't think he'll be here for all 6 years. Again, I'm surprised he made it through the 28 game losing streak. I'm surprised he made it through the organizational meeting saying, "Hey, dude, you got to play Jaden Ivey." And yeah, I didn't after the 28 game losing streak and hearing about that organizational meeting, and then also hearing about how he vetoed a Killian Hayes trade and kinda showed favoritism for some players. I didn't think he'd make it through the All-Star break. That was, like, my own personal opinion, even though I've said on here, I think I said I would give him 3 seasons. I'm out on all that. I was wrong. I personally would not give him another year. So I know I'm kind of ranting through the question. So again, to go back to it, how bad do things have to get? I think Monty has to go through another losing streak before Tom Gores just says, "Hey, you know what? I made a mistake. I should have trusted Troy Weaver. Let me fire this guy. I'm going to eat it. It's going to be bad. It's a lot of money. Everything's guaranteed." But that's what's going to take. I think it's going to take another losing streak, or it's going to take Cade Cunningham coming out and just saying, "Look, this sucks. We're not going to win with this guy. We need to get out." So Monty hasn't been particularly good at any of his stops because of his X's and O's He has a reputation for embarrassing players. That was something that was kinda interesting. I went back and looked at some things, and he did do I believe he did a press conference when he got brought into Phoenix, and he talked about his time in New Orleans where he still talks to former players and they're like, "Hey, I love playing for you," but and the but that they would mention was something he had to work on. I don't know if he ever worked on it. It seems like he's basically the same coach that he was when it comes to his relationships with players. Seems like he's the same coach that he was in New Orleans, that he was in Phoenix, and it seems like it carried over to Detroit. Because I don't care what anybody says. At the beginning of the season, he kinda called out Jaden Ivey. That's at least what it seemed like in those press conferences when he would talk about him, and that to me was like throwing him it kinda felt like he was throwing him under the bus. So I think it just carried over from New Orleans to Phoenix to here, and that's just not good, especially when you have a reputation of being like a player's coach and being there for your guys. I don't get it. Maybe he's just there for some of them. So he also shows favoritism. I mean, Phoenix Suns fans, they will tell you how many times he played Landry Shamet, and it was just I mean, it's kind of funny now, like, reading how he would play Landry all the time and, like, Ish Wainwright, I believe, too. And he would get playoff minutes where people are like, "I don't think this guy deserves it." And the only reason I'm saying it's funny is because we actually saw it here in Detroit with Killian Hayes, Isaiah Livers, and now it seems like James Wiseman is the new favorite, and Monty's just like, "Hey, I gotta figure this guy out. I gotta figure out something for James Wiseman. He's my new favorite. I'm gonna do whatever I can to get him minutes on the floor." Because again, you just heard me a few minutes ago talk about the lineup with Mike Muscala and how the team's that much better. He's also relied on veterans to clean up his mistakes. This is a big one. And so Monty has had 5 winning seasons as a head coach in the NBA. And what I mean by relied on veterans to clean up his mistakes, 4 of those winning seasons came with one of the most intelligent basketball players that has ever blessed an NBA floor in Chris Paul. Chris Paul is responsible for 4 winning seasons in getting the Phoenix Suns to the NBA Finals, even though Monty Williams was the head coach. That is just crazy to me because I didn't even believe it. I didn't know and even though Monty was in New Orleans, he only had Chris Paul on his team for 1 season, and that was his first year, and that was his first winning season as a head coach, and then he had, I believe, 3 losing seasons, and then he had another winning season with, a unicorn type player in Anthony Davis, who was just absolutely bananas that year and it was only his 2nd year in the league. The brow was killing guys on the floor. And then he had, you know, 3 more winning seasons with the Phoenix Suns, and that was with Chris Paul as well. I just Again, I mean, I know the topic is, does Monty Williams wanna get fired? I don't wanna say that, but again, it really does seem like it, just for all the things I've mentioned, like, you know, saying one thing to the media and saying one thing to the fans and then just doing the opposite, being stubborn with his X's and O's where even though we see Jaden Ivey and Cade on the floor, it still seems like Jaden Ivey is just an afterthought when it comes to the offense, and he wants to run everything through Cade Cunningham and allow him to bail him out. Embarrassing guys, which is something, or throwing them under the bus, is something we saw him do with Jaden Ivey. He's just a bad coach all around. And again, I don't know if he's actively trying to get fired, but he really didn't want to be here until Tom Gores threw a tremendous amount of money at him and made him the richest coach in NBA history. So, yeah, maybe there is something to being Monty Williams wanting to get fired.